whenever you're talking to people about conspiracy, like I mentioned, like conspiracy that don't make sense always crack me up. Masks are a good one because they're like, well, they're just making us wear these masks as a test to see how acquiescent you are. I was like, my brother in Christ, the government knows your name. It knows where you were born. It knows where you live. Knows where you work. Knows what you drive. It knows who you're fucking. I mean, it knows everything about you, and you still pay your taxes every year like a good little citizen, don't you? Like they have all the control of your life they could possibly want. What could they ever learn by who wears a mask and who doesn't? But I don't know. They don't think about it anymore. It's just they love conjuring up nonsense for no reason.
You're not that important is the thing. Like that, like they're not. They have no reason to track you. With all the shit that's going on in the world, the government is not going to go out of their way to track, some dude in the South, whatever. Like, and that goes back to the Obama conspiracy thing too. Like the weird thing about the Obama conspiracies, they have this worldview where it's like nothing is just by chance, right? Like,
yeah,
this very like fatalistic worldview. Like they didn't know in the '60s when Barack Obama was born that he was one day be president. Like,
or did they?
You have to say that like that Honolulu newspaper was in on some conspiracy to like put his name in the thing because they knew that that 60 years later, whatever, he would be president. It just it's silly. It's really silly.
There's
the mask thing is not like you're not that important. They don't care that much about you.
And it wouldn't teach them anything at all. And like even the COVID thing. So like there was this is where it gets because like COVID was weird. No big statement there. But no one knew what was going on for a long time. Like nobody. Like we didn't know. The government didn't know. Scientists didn't know. We were just shooting in the dark. So they were playing it safe, like you should. Like that's what everyone in the world did because it made sense. But the fact that there was uncertainty there, people don't like people don't like when they don't have answers. They don't like it. And so then whenever people say, okay, this happened, okay, we're correcting it. Oh my God, they lied to us. It's like, well, they didn't know, man. They're just trying their best to figure this out. And sometimes it did. I don't know about you, people may disagree with this, but whenever people would talk about the origin of COVID, and like when we first heard that it came from a wet market, with the bats and everything like that. And then people would say, well, actually, no, it was a virus that leaked from the lab. Now, I got to tell you, when I found out that there was a virology lab, was like, okay, that's not an insane theory right there. That is not crazy. Now, it breaks down into like two areas because I was like, okay, if it came to truth that, it actually leaked from the lab, I wouldn't be shocked to hear that. I don't for a second believe that the Chinese government released this virus on purpose on their own people to have it circumnavigate the globe. That's where it falls apart and doesn't make any sense. But people seem to have this. This is where like QAnon kind of rose out, is that they kind of get this idea that just because some conspiracy theories are true, like the Gulf of Tonkin or MK Ultra. So like, those conspiracy theories are true. That means all conspiracy theories are true. That's kind of right. Like that's kind of what they go down. Like they go down this wild hole where there's no reality whatsoever. And I don't know how to deal with these people. I just don't.
Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day. I was actually planning on doing some content on it. Actually, you kind of like read my mind. Like the government did some really, really messed up shit. The United States government in the history of our country in the 60s, a lot of this stuff was real. That doesn't mean like MK Ultra was real. That doesn't mean that, we didn't go to the moon or the earth is flat or, that doesn't mean that like this QAnon, like the Democrats are part of this global elite cabal that wants to like drink the blood of children. Like you don't have to make that leap. You can question things. And we talk about this on my podcast all the time. The really frustrating thing is that they jump right to these like asinine conspiracy theories when really the problem is much more rooted in reality. Like, they have all these conspiracies about 9/11 and how, Bush caused 9/11. But the real problem, the real issue with 9/11 goes back to Reagan and how we funded the Mujahideen in Afghanistan. Like that shit was real. That actually happened. like what Reagan did in Afghanistan with the Mujahideen and what George H.W. Bush did. Like you could look at that and say like that was the cause of 9/11, sure. But then to go all the way and just talk about these conspiracy theories, like I don't know, it's just a waste. It's a waste. It's a waste of energy. There are real problems that we could fix if we actually focused on the problem, but people love to just talk about the insane conspiracy theories type stuff, you know.
Well, my man, that's not as fun. Like so, like saying that we funded the Mujahideen to fight the Soviets and everything is true, and like how that led to the creation of the Taliban that destabilized Afghanistan, that allowed terror cells to train in this backward mountainous region, and they eventually concocted a shockingly simple and effective plan. Like, I mean, it's amazing. I don't know, I'll get it later, but a shockingly simple and effective plan to take down the Twin Towers and the Pentagon and everything. But that's not nearly as fun as a bunch of guys, in construction at planting bombs in like two of the tallest buildings on the planet and no one catching it. Yeah, that's a lot more fun. That's to deal with. But the MK Ultra one, that is a great conspiracy theory to go to because so for those who don't know, MK Ultra was a CIA experiment in which they used, I believe, LSD to try to mind control people, because of course they would. And the unfortunately it didn't work. But what I always like to say is that, I mean, if it did work, we'd never know. We would never. I mean, it could have actually been successful, and we're just living through this through the control of the government the entire time. But yeah, the government does fucked up shit all the time. But most conspiracy theories aren't that cool. Most of them are not as cool as the MK Ultra one. They're, like you said, we funded. Sorry, my cat is crazy. We funded all these operations that always come back to bite us in the ass. A recurring theme that happens in politics, and we just reached this weird time where the Democratic Party is not as strong as it should be. After all this, that's right. I mean, you mentioned Obama and how we all kind of thought that things would continue to get better. Like we wanted at least a public option or something. We got Obamacare. It's like, okay, we can build on that. But Trump's election threw everything into a blender, and it not only stalled all the progress we thought we were making, slow as it was, but it energized this really rabid base of exuberant fascists. And Trump did more psychological damage to the country, I think, than political damage. Like, what do you think?
Yeah. Oh, it's just been so bad. I feel like at some point we veered off into another timeline, and we're just.
It does feel like that, yeah.
Dumbass timeline. Because for those of us who grew up in the 90s, Trump's a joke. Trump was a joke. Like he was never like this. He was not a cool guy. Like, no one thought Trump was a cool guy. He was a rich guy from New York.
Thought he was rich, yeah.
He was just kind of a clown. But for him to be president of the United States and to have this cult-like following the way he does is just highly disturbing. And yeah, it's an absolute sort of brain cancer on the society of the United States. And I really do think it's a backlash. But you know what's interesting is it's not just limited to this country. I mean, we could sit here and say that it's a reaction to Barack Obama, and it is in a lot of ways. But there's a lot of this going on in Europe right now. You talked about being from Europe. I mean, there's a fascist movement that just took control in Italy. There's the fascists in Hungary. There's a fascist movement in Spain that's growing. So I mean,
Argentina's got
Argentina. So there is this sort of right wing movement happening all over the world that, I do think Trump kicked it into gear, gave those people permission to be fascist, to be racist. He made that fashionable again. But yeah, we're living in very strange times. But yeah, I like the way you said that. We were on the verge of we didn't get everything we wanted with Barack Obama, not even close. But we were on the verge of doing great things, and people got frustrated that the process was taking too long, and Trump came in, and we're not even thinking about like universal health care right now. We're not even.
I know.
the stuff that we were thinking about 10 years ago. Right now, we're just trying to survive. Like right now, we're just trying to keep our democracy alive. So
yeah, that is the worst part of it. That well, the worst part actually is that no one saw it coming. Like, November 2016. I remember this. I wasn't super excited about Hillary Clinton, but I remember thinking, okay, look, Hillary Clinton may not have been, the person I would have picked or anything, but there's just no way she's going to lose. Like, people aren't actually going to get out of bed in the morning, dry or leave work and go vote for Donald Trump. They did. It wasn't a lot of people, but it was just enough to actually get him through. And that really, it sent me down this weird spiral where I think Trump, like I was saying, we were talking about how Trump, the psychic damage he did more than the legislative damage he did, which was pretty bad too, is that it convinced me that there were more Trump supporters than there actually were.
Yeah.
And also with how I love that they call themselves the silent majority, because if there's anything these folks are not, it's silent. They cannot shut the fuck up about how much they love Donald Trump. And
or the majority. They're not the majority at any stretch.
All right, they're the majority. Yes. Yeah, of course. Yeah. They're the loudest fuck minority. That's what they are. Yeah. And they so I remember thinking that, oh man, it's like I remember talking to my dad, and my dad was saying that, I don't think Trump's going to win in 2020. And I said, well, why not? He says that, I can't remember what he said, but he said something like, just look at him. Something like, it was like, you can't be that kind of guy and have people come out and support you when it's over. And I was like, Dad, I don't know. I think he's going to win and everything. And he didn't. And I was like, oh. And then 2018, they lost a bunch of seats, which was to be expected. And they lost in 2020. And then 2022, they had the worst performance in like 100 years for an out-of-power party. Yeah. And that started to soothe me a bit. I was like, okay, all right, this isn't quite as bad as I thought. Is that these folks are just really proud of the fact that one of their guys somehow made it into the White House. And they make it seem like they're a larger sample of the population than they actually are. Do you get that opinion? Because that's kind of how I read it.
I think absolutely. I think there's about 30% of this population that would identify as a Trump supporter. Of that, you have maybe, half of that are the hardcore people. But it is definitely a very, very loud minority.